Okay, so this is another video. What I want to do this time is actually find and show an example of a wireless client that is not performing well, and perhaps give you some background on when this can occur and what may be happening when you get complaints from a teacher about perhaps one particular laptop in a location which is not performing as well as some of the others. So we're going to start immediately in the monitor screen. And what we're going to do is, I know there's some clients at Don Estridge. So we're going to go into Don Estridge and look at the access points. So we're going to AirHive access points. And again, my little trick for me with lots of filters is type E because I want to look at the Ds, Don Estridge Middle School. And to be honest, all I wanted to do was find that Don Estridge is a 10.33. That's the IP addresses of both wireless clients and access points. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to monitor clients and not access points. So I'm going to click on wireless clients here. This takes a little bit of time because the initial filter is going to pull up all the wireless clients and all the access points in the district and try and organize them in a table. And that's a lot of wireless clients. So we'll be sitting here for quite a few seconds while that happens. Okay, so now I've got all the clients in the district. I need to filter them so that I only look at the wireless clients at Don Estridge. And then specifically, I want to look at some of the Windows wireless clients. So I hit plus to create a new filter, which is for clients. So it's a 10.33, I think it was. Would be the client IP address. And I only want to look at Windows. So I'm going to have to type Windows 7/Vista as the client operating system. I'm not going to save that. I'm just going to search on it. Okay. And what I want to do is I want to organize them by receive signal strength indication to get the ones with the weakest signal because they're likely to be the clients with the with the most issues. And I also want a client which has transmitted some level of data. And so here I can see something that looks quite interesting. I've got one which has transmitted 453 megs of data, but it has a signal to noise ratio of 17 dBs, which is very low. So I right click on this client. Okay, and I get some graphs. And now it looks like most of that data was transmitted quite early on when it initially connected, which was at 11:17, so it's not been connected that long. If we look at the bandwidth, then it was up at 140 kilobits per second. Well, so let's have a look at this. Okay, so this is going from the access point towards the client, and you can see these colors are, when you see yellows and browns as opposed to greens and blues, you know things aren't good. So we're seeing that a lot of transmission is occurring at 13, at 19, at 18, at 6.5, 26. Now, what does that mean? It means that for a given amount of data, this client has been using up more really than its fair share of airtime, because if you had X amount of data, then it would go twice as quickly over the channel if you were able to communicate at 72 megabits per second as opposed to, say, 36 megabits per second. So this is an airtime hog, and you don't want your clients to be like that. Now, if we look at the received bitrate distribution, similar story. Now, in this particular case, when we look up here, we see we have a neg 77 dBm receive signal strength indicator. What this really means is that this client has connected to an access point that it is not near. It may be in the next classroom, it may be 2 classrooms away, and we do have issues with laptops just deciding to connect to an access point which really isn't the best one for them. And you can see that a laptop has done this when you look at the wireless icon, and you can in the bars, and you see it's only got 1 or 2 bars, whereas all the other laptops in the room have 4 or 5 bars. And what you want to do is disconnect and reconnect to the wireless network in the hope that it will actually decide to connect to a better access point one, which is presumably in the same room. So we can look at another 1 or 2 clients. So that was, let's have a look here. Neg 77 dBm, 17 dB. It might be interesting to look for a client with a middling signal to noise ratio of 25, which should be acceptable, which has passed a lot of data. And it's also on the 2.4 band. We'll look at this one. Okay, and this is quite nice because there's been a lot of data transmitted over quite a long time, peaking up at 6 megabits per second. So this is actually a nice one. So let's see what's happening here. Transmitted is what we're really interested in, because most of the data is going from the access point transmitted towards the client. And you see, notice this right slider here. And you can see actually this is not that bad. If we juxtapose bandwidth to transmitted data rate, you can see that there have been sustained periods when it was able to achieve its highest data rate. You can imagine that these periods were possibly periods of high interference where you've got data being transmitted, but it hasn't been able to be transmitted at a high data rate. But this is like, it is what we'd expect. It's kind of borderline. 25 dBs is borderline. We should generally be able to manage better than that when an access point is connecting to a client in the same room. So let's look at received. And this is what you can sometimes see, although even this doesn't look that bad. At the times when there is significant data transmission, which is 1050 and 1106 and 1113. If we go back here, so 1106, 1104, 1106 is pretty much in the green. 1113 also pretty much in the green. It was 1050 we were talking about. Again, 1050 is pretty much in the green. So at the times when there's been significant data transmission, it's been at a reasonable rate. So we can do the same again, 1050. What do we say? 1113. Yep, 1113. 1050. 1106. We go back to transmitted data route. Okay. Wait. 5. So yeah. So again, this is 25. That's interesting because it's kind of on the cusp. It's generally pretty acceptable, but you could imagine if it got a little bit worse, things would start to degrade. This one here is interesting. This is actually on 5 gigahertz, but it's got a very low 12 dB signal to noise. So we can look at that one. Yeah, if we look at our bandwidth, even, so this is 1110. We can telescope this. So even at 1110, the rates were very slow. And the issue you have with this is that this client is occupying the channel for much more than it should. But fundamentally, the issue is that the client shouldn't be using that access point. And this is not an example of something wrong with the wireless system. It's really something wrong with the wireless client and its ability to correctly select the access point it should be using. Okay.